Hello, my name is Vince Faney. I am the producer, director, and host of the show Vinsanity Unplugged. I had the channel, a show on Glenn County's community TV, located in Eugene, Oregon, and soon the show will go towards other public access TV stations, first one being in Southern Oregon, and then exporting a lot of my other shows, all my shows, my videos, to the other public access TVs. You can see my videos on YouTube, soon Spotify, and other social media outlets, particularly those ones that are set up for streaming videos, and hopefully you all be interested. Before I start on why I'm giving this little chat, this video here, I want to give a shout out to the few people, I'm going to emphasize few people that have been lending me some help. I'm going to give a big shout out to my friend Michael. He's been helping me to oversee certain affairs, some of my business interests, the small business interests that I have in Southern Oregon. And again, without him overseeing things, things would be different. I want to give a big shout out to Dar, who's been helping me on various projects, or helping me to get this project going. I want to thank John and his wonderful wife, who have actually set up a small room off their business. They have a huge machine shop, huge, and they set a small little room to where I can set up a podcasting studio and have the opportunity to get out of my van, which I've been living in, to as I travel around looking to network with people. And so that's been nice to have something where I could stand instead of sit cramped up, because I have a terrible back. I want to thank Jess for a lot of the technical skills, computer savvy skills, helping the movie making, presentation, and so forth. Of course, you know, people have to be paid. So Jess has done some pro bono stuff for me, but I've had to shell out a lot of my own money, and I'm on a limited income. I had to shell out my own money to pay him, which he richly deserves, because he's a working class guy. There have been a few other techies I've had to do this with also. I also want to thank John and his wife for allowing me to temporarily set up an enclosure where I could perform my 21-day fast. And in this enclosure, you see behind me in the corner is my podcasting. I moved my podcasting apparatus behind me in the corner. And all around, you don't see it, is some basic weight equipment that I was carrying around in my cargo trailer as I traveled the country trying to get people interested. And over to my right is my sensory deprivation tank. Totally soundproof, lightproof, no way of keeping track of time. It's like a large coffin, or a crypt. We call it the crypt. And I'll explain what I'm going to be doing with that in a little bit. One of the reasons why I'm sharing this is my last rodeo is I haven't been able to get the support that I've needed. My biggest goal in life, my entire life almost, is to see that all of us have the opportunity at least for affordable housing. Much to my dismay, there's a lot of people who want affordable housing but don't know how to attain that. Even worse, there's a lot of people, when they know how, when you show them the mechanics of how they and their friends and loved ones can achieve this, for some reason there's a disconnect. They won't move forward towards that goal. There's no helping that. But there's those of us, if we had enough people doing what I would outline, and I'm not the only person who's outlined this. In fact, I dare say that I got this idea from many people who are successful in real estate as investors, and also many people who came here as immigrants who went about this plan to provide for their fellow immigrants and their subculture, their community. Now, the reason why I went forward with this plan, why I'm so passionate about it, is as a kid, after my parents divorced, my mother, she was poor. She never graduated high school. She got married when she was just turned 16. And although she was an extraordinarily bright woman, she just didn't understand finances. All she knew was that she work hard and have ethics, have integrity, and be loyal to your friends. She's a great woman. If it wasn't for her, I'd probably be in prison. So, there was times growing up when my mother sometimes worked 2 full-time jobs, waitresses jobs, and during that time period, even though we never went without food on the table, she had to scrimp and not give the most nutritious foods, packaged like spaghetti, just pasta, starches, some greens. My brother and I had felt a severe food insecurity, so we would often feel compelled. It wouldn't be like we just thought it. We'd be compelled to go out and forage for food. Go down to the New Inlet River in North Carolina, just scavenge fresh shellfish, scallops, clams, smash them on the rocks right there and just eat them raw, the whole thing. Now, we had a couple bouts of parasites from these, and worms and so forth, but you got 2 guys who were hungry, and we didn't think about it. So during this couple of years, one year I went to 5 different schools. From my birth till the time I went in the Marines, we moved around 14 times. So I never stayed in any one place to make friends until I went to Upper Marion High School. And when I met these friends, it was during the 60s, during the hippie movements. Earlier on, it was the civil rights movement and so forth. And this is when we talked about the shrinking world. The environment, the dangers of where the environment and resources were depleting all around the world, the various pandemics, the economic downturns. There were some questions as to whether capitalism is viable or not. My little group of unsophisticated friends thought that people should share and they should try to work together to somehow have communes and so forth. Well, I don't know about communes. I mean, I was open to the idea. Less so now, but I'm still open to communities to where people could have affordable housing. And again, when my mother was divorced and single and working 2 jobs, we had to move around so many times. There's always the issue, how long will we be able to sleep in this house? And she was paying rent. And so, you get landlords that say, hey, sorry, you have to move out, we're selling the place. Or landlords, some men, were saying besides the rent, they wanted sexual favors from my mother. I didn't find this out till I was like an adult. And I have no idea as to whether if my mom capitulated out of fear to support her kids or not. That's something she wouldn't talk about. I hope that's not the case. I know many women who have done that, who've told me they've been put in that situation, and just to protect their children, to make sure their children had a roof over their head, they had to become a landlord's toy. So all this made for a very uneasy life for me, knowing that we could be homeless at any time. And so I know that we have the resources if we put our collective effort together. There's no one that should be without an affordable habitat, even if it's a Conestoga. Okay? So someone like me who's single, especially when I was younger and single, a Conestoga and a community of Conestogas where you had a community kitchen, a community laundry room, a community like a cafeteria to sit in and hang out and eat, even if they were scheduled meals, strictly scheduled, and community showers, that would have been fine for me. That's how I lived in the Marines. And then there's a possibility that bigger shelters like the pallet sheds or other sheds where 1 or 2 people could live in and have their basic material things that they need, like a couple sets of clothes, clean clothes, and maybe a laptop. These days, a laptop, access to a shower. There's also perhaps tiny houses. Now they're making tiny houses where you get a husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, or another two men, two bachelors, two men who are significant others to each other, and or a family with a couple kids in houses that are tiny but a little larger. In fact, I remember growing up that my grandparents, who came over from Sicily and Italy, had very tiny houses. They didn't have 2 bathrooms. They only had 2 bedrooms. A small, tiny little living room and a small kitchen. I think the kitchens back in those days were the largest part of the house, where relatives would come over and sit around the kitchen table, and that's where people would socialize and eat. So, the fact is, though, not everybody wants to own a house. But we still have the resources. And if only we had the collective will, we could provide people who want to rent a house that would be affordable. So, all my life, I wanted to find a way to develop wealth. I wanted to invest my money and get houses. And I got to the point where I had a couple houses. And, you know, those houses were earmarked for many of my friends back east and family who weren't doing well. And I kept on inviting them to come out to Oregon because they were unhappy with living in the Philadelphia area. Some of my friends were living in their mom's basement and they were having some issues. So parents maybe really let them know they didn't want their kids to live in the basement forever. They wanted their kids to launch. But tough economic times always come around. So I invited my friends to come out, and I figure, okay, I got one house where a couple of my male friends could live in, and another house where a couple of my female friends could live in, and another house where my relatives could live in. And I had the dream, because these are all hyper-intelligent people, I had the dream that they would, could be living for free, get to the point where we had these properties paid off, poor resources, pay off the properties, and then they, of course, would find a job that they're best suited for, and then together we could use our combined talents, creativity, and intelligence to go out in the community and be a force of good in the community. Now, I don't think that people should be forced or shamed into being part of a collective. I'm not somebody who desires that we be a collective. I'm not a communist. I'm not a socialist. Much to the disappointment in people who are social activists in the Eugene community who thought I was a socialist, and they really loved me because they thought I was just somebody who would give the shirt off my back and work sun up to sundown to make things happen for the poor. But I'm not, and I like the idea of some people being self-reliant and being bootstrapped their way. I'm sorry, but some people have bootstrapped their way into wealth. That's appealing. But there's a lot of wealthy people who haven't bootstrapped their way in. They've gotten help, gentle nudges, and so forth. So bottom line, this is not scripted, so I got to make sure I don't have an hour-long video. But basically, my plan didn't work out as well as I thought. Things didn't go as expected because I ran into a mishap with the United States Postal Service. And some laws are broken. I'm not going to go into it now. And I had health issues, and they would not allow me reasonable accommodation, even though it was at my own cost. And so they broke the law, and a couple of my co-workers died, and I was forced out of work for a couple of years, and my resources quickly became diminished, my investments, just to survive. And some people would just give up on this, and this actually fired up my ambitions, that such things like this is the reason why we all need to work together collectively to make sure that during such unfortunate, often unfair times, situations, each of us could have a place to live that was paid off. So when you have economic downturns, when you have pandemics, when you have war, civil strife, shortages of water, let's say, or food, or anything, people will still have a place to live. And for those smart people who have saved a giant pantry of food for a year or two, and they have tools and various skill sets, they're going to be better off. So I decided, to basically, because approach to people who are against the concept of bootstrapping and self-reliance and scoff, and these people who do well, they help the community to do well by setting up nonprofits, finding places where homeless people can sleep in their cars without being harassed by the police or whatever, safe spots. There are people who set up facilities for laundry, and they have all sorts of resources to help homeless people to get their IDs and so forth. Then there's other places like food pantries and so forth. Right now there's in every town there's starting to be non-profits who are building tiny shelters, Conestogas. But they don't have enough money, they don't have enough people, they don't have enough supplies. Money's the big key. And I know if it was X amount of dollars was available to make this happen, it could happen. The biggest thing that would hold it up then is City Hall. Like in many communities, like in Eugene, because I've gone to the town hall meetings, this has been an issue for 20 years. And the biggest obstacles, I've seen 4 big obstacles. Not just for the community and the homeless situation, but for me as well. Bureaucracies are slow, they're cumbersome, there's a lot of turf wars, a lot of infighting, there's a lot of jockeying, status seeking. This politician will kind of set up roadblocks to these others only to steal the idea and come forward saying, hey, I did really well as a mayor, perhaps I should be governor. So that stuff happens all the time. Then you have social activists who basically, they're infighting. Well, if you don't follow my game plan perfectly, I'm not interested in your game plan. I want you to help me do exactly what I think is best. And this happens all around as well. So there's a lot of people dragging their feet. A lot of the social activists are good-hearted people. They mean well. They've done really good work, but they don't have the competency level, the leadership skills, the ability to get people on board to collaborate, to work together so they could maximize, they could use each other's force multipliers working in unison to maximize what needs to be done. Now, I'm not putting them down because evidently I don't either. It's the reason why I'm talking to you. And so you have those people, those are the obstacles. And other obstacles are the taxpayers, people in neighborhoods who basically want the homeless situation to go away. And even those people who give money to these organizations and want the community to do something with the homeless, they just don't want them in their backyard. They're called NIMBYs, not in my backyard. And I can understand that to a degree because there's some complexity there. They're afraid of property values going down. They're afraid of crime and so forth. So oftentimes there's pushback and they put pressure on the politicians. Then the next one, each of us, and I talked to a lot of the social activists, and I had the same situation. Oftentimes you find yourself realizing that people that you love, that you would just assume would be resources because everybody talks of great solutions, everybody can be very articulate, they have great skills at articulating their complaints and their fears. And the rare few may have actually solutions as to what can be done. And that gets you excited, gets me excited. But then these people, for whatever reason, not only will fail to act upon the solutions that they outline, but if you try to get them to move forward, even volunteering to lend your help and support, they won't do it. I got friends who, when I was trying to raise money for Occupy, one simple thing kept a few of these friends from helping me to be more effective. I don't want to be a part of that. I don't want to be part of you helping Occupy. Why? They're great. Sue Saralupi's great. Her people she works with, great. Connor Salisbury's great. These are conscientious people. I don't like the name Occupy. It has a bad taste to it. It has a bad connotation. Anything with the name Occupy, I'm not going to help. Well, why? Well, because I don't want people thinking that I'm affiliated with such socialistic collectivism and that I'm a part of that. I don't want to lend my name to it. Well, you know, and these are people who have pseudonyms when they're online, and they have avatars. So it's not like you could look at their pseudonym and avatar and then be able to go out and say, ha, you know, and be able to confront them or beg from them like a plague of locusts or anything. So there's pushback. And when I go on my walks around the country, for whatever reason, none of my friends or family members will do the things necessary to help make my campaign a success. No sharing. They're not sharing what I'm doing. They're not sharing my mission. They're not saying, hey, I've known Vince forever and he's a stand-up guy, an honest guy. They're not sharing any of that. They're not making comments, you know, they're not giving constructive criticism. Sometimes the criticisms, if there's any, are far less than constructive. So if my group of family and friends were to coordinate their efforts, like I know I've met people who are politicians, and I wish I had this kind of charisma. I don't, evidently. Where you got guys who are running for office, and they manage somehow to gather people who just want to volunteer for them. These are people who are unpaid. So they volunteer doing all the things necessary, all the logistics, you know, the flyers, the phone calls, the emails to appropriate people, to the media, everything. They're not getting paid. These aren't even, most of these people aren't even their friends initially, or family. And these people have charisma, I guess. And then they get elected into office. What's up with that? I have some, I've done a lot of research, and I could answer that later on. But the biggest heartbreak is when you go to a organization and you say, you know, let me backstep again. I'm starting to stammer. So I saw all these problems and issues, and when I was forced out of my job, the biggest reason why I was forced out, the original reason was that the management broke the law. Certain people in management broke the law, and they did it willingly with great evil and malicious intent. And the consequences were evil. Some people were forced out of work, other people died prematurely that didn't have to die. A real erosion of comfort, of trust. The union eroded the trust and the belief. Instead of solidarity, there's a lot of division, unrest, ill ease. My local union created this. Got to say, even the worst of these union people can show, for the record, if in a court of law, that they did some good things, and they did. They put themselves out, they wrote grievances, and when certain contractual things came up, they did what they had to do. But by and large, I would assert that most of them did not fulfill their oath of office, and they purposely dropped the ball. Or if you can't say purposely, they're so incompetent they just dropped the ball. So I'm working with family or friends. Once again, no support. I mean, they would talk to me. Everybody's, oh, this is so sad. It's so bad. You know, this is a problem for me. I hope they get some, you know, air filtration systems. You know, so sorry to hear about your mom dying of Alzheimer's. So sorry to see that you're losing your house. So sorry that your fiance left you. And here's the thing, later in a later episode, I will show you that by simple, gentle nudges from each of them, the simple standing up, coordinating, speaking up, would have saved lives, would have saved my job, would have saved my career. I wouldn't have COPD now. So that's an issue, and that's not just my circle of people I worked with. You know, at first I thought, why am I involved with this circle of people who are doing this to me, or not doing what they should? Am I a terrible person? Am I untrustworthy? What's up with these people? These are intelligent people. And I thought initially, like, how unlucky am I to get into this situation where, you know, I mean, surely the rest of the world isn't like that. But what's sadder, the rest of the world is like that, where people don't stand up for each other. Or if you look around families and friends, they just exist. The good people, educations, good workers, good employees, good citizens. They go to work, but every utterance, every sentence they say, it's either posturing, or it's glad-handing, or it's just hanging out and just chit-chatting about gossip, about Roseanne Barr's wardrobe malfunction or something. There's no really useful information or exchange of skill sets or bartering or anything. It's just people hanging out. 9 to 5, they go to work. The rest of the time, when they're not sleeping, they just chit-chat. And they'll go to church and they'll put in their dollar into the donation box that goes around, and they say, look what I'm doing for my community, and I pay taxes. It's not enough. So, I decided maybe instead of feeling sorry for myself for being forced out of work and becoming unemployable, and I'll tell you why I had become persona non grata, is that I decided, quit feeling sorry for yourself. You've always wanted to help people. You still can find a way. You still have the fire in you, even more than ever now. The option of you investing alone as a person is gone. But there are people out in the community doing good things. Now, I didn't get to know them personally. I mean, one thing I learned is a lot of people who get their name in the paper, they do all these things, or on Facebook, and you hear constantly they do good things. My gosh. But the fact is, my union officers had their name in the paper, and they did do some good things. But when you weigh that on the scales, the good things they did to the bad things they did, I'm not saying these social activists did bad things. Let's look at it a different way. When you look at the good things that they've done, name in the paper, and it's explain what they did, to the things they neglected to do. See, people, when they neglect to do things, they tell themselves, I didn't do anything bad. And then they'll have all sorts of irrational reasons as to why they didn't do certain things. So I had no way of knowing that the people in the community who were standing out were at the level of competence and dedication and ability to collaborate with each other that I know is necessary. I had no way of knowing. But you got to start somewhere. So I figured I'd go out in the community. I didn't have the type of community with the people, the friends and people I worked with. So I thought, why not go out into the community and develop relationships with these people? Find my own community of people who are like-minded. And because of my situation, it wasn't like I could do that. Now, if I had retired and hadn't ran into all the bad things that I ran into, I could just say, great, well, I'm retired. I got my house paid off. I only have one house. Let me go out into the community and hang out with these people and be friends and I'll be their foot soldier. And there are many times sporadically I tried to go to meetings. I did go to meetings and I wanted to be the foot soldier. Not looking to be a leader because that's too much responsibility. But I am a responsible enough person to be a foot soldier. So, but because I'm scrambling looking for work and I'm going in the red most months and I had health issues and I'm all over the place, I really couldn't get to know these people. So I'm trying to cobble things together. And I was hoping that Facebook would be an instrument to where I could show people this is what I'm doing. Now here's what's funny. We talk about people who appear to be doing a lot, doing good. And there are people out in the community who think, and I never tried to promote this. I simply said, I'm getting food to food bank today. Collected food from neighbors, people, friends, canned goods that would be another year away from expiration. They were thinking about throwing it out. I talked them into taking it, let me take it to the food bank. So I try to help these organizations out. And it just, I've done walks and events for, organizations that help women with kids who are facing domestic violence and need housing, a safe spot. I've done it for Food for Lane County, Catholic Services, Occupy Medical, Alzheimer's Association. So I've tried to do all these stunts. Now here's something else. When I've had these stunts getting ready to do it, I just thought that my retired friends or my friends of free time who talk about we need to build community would just jump on board and we'd all be a team. Not like I wanted to be the leader. I wanted to have a team of us going out and getting things done. Crickets in the wilderness. No support. Nothing on MySpace or Facebook. Hey, join Vince, or hey, follow Vince. This is what he's doing. It's just like, nothing can be done. Those people out there you're trying to help, they hate capitalists. Like, what does that have to do with anything? So nothing there, and that's okay. Here's the thing: I don't want to put a guilt trip on anybody. That's my mistake for not evaluating the people around me properly. I didn't have the skills to know the difference between people wishing things were good. I wish there was no homelessness. I wish people didn't sexually commit violence on women. I wish children were raised in a healthy, happy home. But wishing is not valuing necessarily. Like, I wish for all that too, but I wish for it, and I see the rationality of it, and I value it. So I valued strength training. I didn't just say, I wish I was bigger or stronger and this and that. Well, I valued the potential of it so much. I started working out and kept working out and disciplined myself. I wanted to invest for my friends. Set the old, if I build it, they will come, and we could all work together. Because I valued that. I valued my mother, so I wanted a safe haven for her. I valued my coworkers, so I put myself on the line. So not all people understand this. There's a lot of people who even have children who, I'm sorry, this sounds harsh, but even people who have children would have done better just to have a dog, because they just warehouse their children. They don't even have to be abusive. They may not even be abusive. Like my stepfather one time said, I put a roof over your head, I gave you clothes, food, and I said, thank you. Thank you for providing me what every penal institution in the United States provides for its prisoners. I appreciate that. That's nice. You got a lot of parents like that. They don't abuse their kids, but they don't know how to be mentors, coaches. They don't know how to give their kids instructions, aside from forks on the left, spoons on the right. This glass is for ice water, this glass is for coffee. Eat all your veggies. And if you have the anal itches, don't wipe your ass on the rug like the dog does. Go to school, make money. There's no little nuances, no instructions, no instructions of all the nuances we all need to learn to navigate through life. And I would argue they don't value their kids enough to do that, because, I'm sorry, you compare them to other parents who come from rough backgrounds, maybe not college educated, they don't have high IQs, but they're loving, ethical, accountable people who do everything. They value their children so much that they had to fight to keep from spoiling their children. They don't spoil their children because they value their children, but they understand that they want to give their kids all the things they need to navigate through life. And that's time consuming. It takes a lot of thought, a lot of planning, something that has to pretty much happen every day, especially when kids are young. So I see some people who have the ability to value, and sometimes it's only their children, but nothing else. And they say, well, I'm only responsible for this, which is true. If I had kids, I'd like to be like my godfather. I'm responsible for my children, but I want to be a community builder. I want to be wealthy and be a community builder, which he is. So anyways, I started going out in the community, searching for people, organizations, and it's amazing how much lack of support I got. Now, initially when I first did it, I didn't even want to talk about it. Like, people say, why do you need to talk about this? Well, you don't, just do good and don't tell anybody. Well, that only takes you so far. Because organizations, and many of them realizing, have to market, because it's a competing market. Yes, that's right. Nonprofit organizations are competing for donors and dollars. And because they need them. So the ones that are successfully able to market and put on events and successfully be able to attract people, who can habitually provide a small amount of money or a large amount of money or a one-time large chunk of money, those are the organizations that get the most money. And blessed are those organizations if they are very efficient with their money. Because some organizations, whether they have successfully attracted a lot of people or not, some organizations will take every dollar and they'll spend 70 or more % towards administrative costs, and very little of that money goes towards what's needed, the supplies and so forth. And worse still, not only does only a small amount of money go to such needed items, they may not be collaborating well with the community. Other organizations, like the one I'll talk about later in Medford, are becoming almost, they're Olympians in their ability to collaborate well with all the other organizations. Olympians. So I decided, well, I don't want to do anything. I don't care if anybody knows. I'm going to go on this walk. I got my friend Brent Fletcher to help me, the one guy from the post office that I've known, since Philadelphia. He was a wash. That's another story. But I'd walk. I called up different mayors and council people, say, walk with me. Be nice if you bought a T-shirt. This money's going to go to Food for Lane County. It's going to go to women's space, and also for Alzheimer's. You could buy a shirt, or you could write a check. Write a check to one of these organizations. So I got a lot of people, especially the legislators, on board. Hey, this is great. In every town I went through. And I come back, and I give the money. I remember going over to the chapter for Alzheimer's on, I think it's Charlton in Eugene, and I said, here, wrote a big check from Our Mission Possible. And he asked, well, who told you you could do this? I didn't know who could do it. Well, what do you mean? What do you mean, who told me? I just thought my first instinct is to help give. Well, you need permission. I need permission to give you money? No, you need permission that when you do an event, that if you mention us, you got to get permission, because there are a lot of scammers out there who use the names of the charities and just take money from people, and those charities never see it. I didn't think of that, quite frankly, and oh wow, that makes sense. And plus, then you find out they don't want somebody who's a dubious character. Like, I'm sure, Meals on Wheels wouldn't want Jeffrey Dahmer being the face of their organization. So I understand. And I understand it because of the situation I went through. This Eugene, Springfield's a small community, I've heard, and confronted, in fact, ideas that some people had about me, about my situation I've been through. And, so in their mind, I wasn't a very trustworthy person. So that put me behind the 8 ball. I understand that. So anyways, we wrote these big checks. I got the pictures I'll show you on this podcast. And then I decided, well, it's a good idea. Go right to the people. Go right to the people. I went to get sponsors. A couple of the sponsors, like REIs, were excited at first. Oh my gosh, you're going to do this? Wow, those are the stunts you're going to do? Amazing. We'll be glad to sponsor you. Awesome. We're going to talk with our board members about this first, which makes sense. That's great. They called me back, kind of had a hard time keeping eye contact with me. We Googled your name, and it turns out that you're the kind of person, we think you're doing a good thing, but you're the kind of person who we don't representing our organization. We don't want to be sponsoring somebody who doesn't represent family values. And I'm like, what do you mean? I'm all about family values. Yeah, you wrote a book, Adventures in Marine Biology, and we had access to some of the language. You put out blurbs, and there was some foul language that you used. I go, well, that's what drill instructors and Marines do. We tend to be very colorful in our language. Yeah. Then there are other things that you did when you were a young man that you describe in the book. Not very family oriented. I go, yes. That's the emphasis I was trying to do, that for all of us who have sinned or done things that might be questionable, some things that are a little blue, my emphasis about the book was the message, like they were all mistakes, and we should be family oriented, community oriented, ethical, not be so, the emphasis, the cautionary tale is like, pursuing a carnal life is not in the best interest even for your own development. But the guy wished me well, and then of course there are other organizations that wanted me to talk to them, and so I went to one organization, and I got to go ahead, and she was excited, and she was the contact person for any of the legislators or the people I'd meet on the street when I did this walk. And then you have the they would talk to the media, any radio station and so forth. So my job was to go through each town and contact them ahead and say, hey, I'll be coming through soon, this is me, blah blah blah, I'm doing this, I'm having fun. Took 2 weeks vacation to do this. The whole thing took about $1,000 out of my own pocket to do this. And you know, so I decided, hey, this is great. But when they wanted to know, do you have a name, email, phone number of a contact person with this organization so we could verify that you are who you say you are, doing what you say you're doing? Yeah, here, yeah, call this woman up. She wouldn't answer the phone. She wouldn't call back, she wouldn't email them back. There's none of them. And I'd make these stops and email her and try calling her and so forth. She wouldn't contact me. So I couldn't get anybody in the media to follow this and get the public aware and get them excited. So I go back and I didn't make hardly anything, right? So I spent $1,000 to make some pocket change for them, which I turned over to them. And I tried to talk to the woman. I said, what, you know, and she, you know, the gatekeeper said, well, she's in a board meeting. She says she can't see you now. And then and the next time I came in, she went back and here's some murmuring. Well, you know, I don't know. She has a very erratic schedule. She'll call you. She'll call. And so I kept on emailing, calling. And later I heard in the community that rumor, I can't confirm or deny this, that they, again, checked out my situation, my mishap with my employer, my federal employer, and all of a sudden I'm a person of question. But even aside from that, you know, here I am trying to do all this stuff, and I've done other walks and other events, and I did one day I walked for 24 hours, no sleep, no rest, no food. Then a couple weeks later I did 48 hours, same thing. And I managed to get people who knew me as a personal trainer to pledge money for every mile I walked. Even got a couple people who are legislators or candidates for certain offices, they wrote checks. And so I managed to bring to women's space quite a few $1,000s got slotted their way. And recently I asked some people who work for the city down by the homeless camp, this is what I'm doing. I have this 8x8 enclosure, I'll have some weight equipment. Told him exactly what I intended to do, and he directed me down to the last block where they had more red squares available, had all these empty red squares. He goes, there's plenty of room down there, get yours, but there's people coming in, more and more people. So grab the square quickly, put your enclosure there, and you'll have a spot if you get there soon enough. And just as he said, I'd done a reconnaissance, a lot of empty squares, and each time I went by, squares were being filled up, so I had to get a friend to help me bring the enclosure there. Within 2 days, with the first day and the second day, I had people from the community who follow me on Facebook that they're not even my friends, they just ghost me. They just like what I write, you know, and that's nice. They like my ideas, they like the things I do, and they never say like on there or do anything. They just listen. I get often approached in the community, hey, you're so-and-so, love your stuff that you write, love the stuff that you're doing, you're an inspiration, good deal. Okay, great. That's great. So I get a few friends from Facebook and some of the people who aren't friends but been ghosted me, and they're like inspired. They actually came down to the site where normally they'd be too nervous to go because they're fearful of the crime and so forth. They're overly concerned. I don't know if overly is the right word, but they came down and they introduced, hey, how you doing? So you actually did it. This is it, you know, because I posted some pictures of the empty enclosure, and they're like, where do I write? Who do I give money to? I said, well, you don't give it to me. I don't take cash. Go to this organization. I really like them. They're building Conestogas, or this organization is feeding people burritos, or this organization. But, you know, I think they're three good organizations. Now, I went to these organizations, the directors ahead of time, or the people, the gatekeeper, said, this is what I want to do. Is this something you wouldn't mind being aligned with? They're like, oh, wow, that'd be great. There was concerns. One organization, I went to churches and so forth and so on, and they wouldn't let me put my enclosure in my isolation tank on their property because I told them I was going to do a 21-day fast, and they said, well, oh gosh, we'll be so concerned if something happened. No, that might just put, we're not comfortable with that. But I got one guy who's running a nonprofit who will fast 10 days with me, and a couple other people said they share a fast. But by the second day, the city said, no go, can't get it, we're going to evict you. And actually, the first time they said something was like, well, it's unlikely they're going to let you keep this here. And I go, why? Well, it's a permanent structure. No, it's not. Two of us could lift it up. Disassembles in 5 minutes. There's no floor, no roof. Yeah, well, you know how city is. I said, who made the decision? Did they make a decision that I can't? What did they say? Well, actually, there's going to be a committee meeting on this tomorrow afternoon. So I email 80 people in key positions in the city, in the park, public works, everything. Friendly emails. I wasn't like going to go aggro on them. And then I figured out I want to find out who makes the decisions. Who's the decision makers? And they came down to the mayor and the council people and the people ahead of public works, maybe the city manager. So I got 30 people that were potentially decision makers. I sent all of them another email. Of course, they had the previous emails. And I call all 30 people's offices getting answering machines. Nobody called me back. Nobody emailed me back except for the only email responses out of 80 people were like 15 automatic replies, not in till such and such. A couple people said, hey, I'm retired, you may want to contact these people. And I emailed them and called them, no response. And I said, and of course when I called them again, I said, hey, if I can't be down here, tell me where I can be. Where would you not be uptight about me being? So not only did I have to leave the enclosure, they said, you're not welcome to stay here at all. We don't care if you're living in a van or whatever. They just basically said there are a lot of organizations that are doing well to provide housing, and there's a long list. Anyways, a lot of pushback from the city, and I really, quite frankly, am dismayed because I asked if I could be part of that the committee and look them face to face, eye to eye, and just say, and advocate on my behalf of what I was trying to do. Because for a week prior, I planned to go out into the encampment amongst the homeless at the encampment and invite them to exercise with me, set up little grass drills. Because let's face it, anything that can help people to get in better shape and feel good about themselves, do something productive. We're going to provide entertainment some days. I had some musician friends who'd come down with their amp and provide entertainment. And then I was going to go into the enclosure and fast, and then to the isolation tank for 8 days, which is risky. All this is risky. That's not happening. I got booted out. So, very disappointing. But here's the thing that disappointed me the most. I asked all my social activist friends, a lot of people on Facebook, would you email or call these people and stand behind me on this? And only one person said, yeah, I'll stand behind you. And I believe she would have. She does really great work. The other person was like, silence. I tried to get interviews because I was trying to show the city I'm really just trying to help a lot of these people, organizations, and I couldn't get any interviews. The very organizations I was trying to help wouldn't call me back. They wouldn't interview. They just haven't come forward for anything. So here's the thing. To be fair, though, I don't know what's going on in their world. I mean, they probably up to here with responsibilities and stuff, right? They may be overwhelmed. So I'm not taking it personal. I'm just disappointed. But the fact of the matter is that it doesn't matter if they have something personal against me, if they're incompetent, if they're totally competent but overwhelmed. It doesn't matter, because when the rubber hits the road, I got to invest my time. For all the money and time I invest in effort, there's got to be a certain productive return. Money raised, messages out further for us to be together, all of us to work together. I mean, investors, they have a look at the risk to benefit ratio, and yeah, this is really risky, but boy, the benefits, the rewards would be great, risk to rewards. But when you're a person not making money and you're actually putting money, and you go, well, okay, this is a labor of love. I'm putting my time and money, and I just want it to go. I want it to be epic. I want to have epic results. I want more people around the world to say, let's work together and collaborate. I want boatloads of money to go to these organizations. And when it turns around that the people who were actually inspired on day 1 or 2 are basically giving money to the organizations, and the organization is not really supporting me to support them, a little dismaying. It feels a little, I feel like those people have been betrayed, because they had the vision, they saw my vision, they believed in it. So I felt like I let them down. I felt like these organizations kind of let them down. And I think the community's been let down, even though that's not their intention. And I'm sure that's not the intention of the city. So anyways, that's what I'm going to be, I just can't do it anymore. It's just exhausting. And I hear rumors that some of the social activists and people in the community thought I should have just protested and had myself arrested. They thought I should have stirred a protest. And see, part of my protest, part of my doing this, is that the part of the problem that we're not getting things done is we spend too much time, a division between people, Republicans, Democrats, alt-right, alt-left, genders fighting genders, races and ethnic, it's just all this energy going out here when we could all be focusing on the things that are necessary to focus on. And I didn't want to be an instrument. I didn't want to be anybody's tool to start something else that was going to be decisive and destructive and anti-productive. So that's the reason why I decided, hey, okay, I'll find another way. So my friend John and his wife, they had this huge machine shop. They're not here right now. I think it's closed. But it's in an undisclosed place as you travel towards the coast from the west of Eugene. And the reason why it's undisclosed is I don't want any bureaucracy or county commissioners or anybody, paramedics or first responders, to say, hey, what you're doing is risky, and for your own good, we're going to have to stop you. And I don't want to be stopped mid-level. So now my 8x8 enclosure is now a 16x16, and I have all the weight equipment that I normally keep in my cargo trailer, and there's still going to be plenty of space, and I have my sensory deprivation tank, which no way could fit in my cargo trailer. That's the only piece that normally doesn't belong. And I'm going to be doing some free streaming, and for a week prior to my fast, I'm going to be reaching out to the community. I'm going to be making a boatload of phone calls to legislators, to social media outlets, to churches, to media outlets like TV stations and so forth, and any organizations trying to help the homeless. And I'm going to invite them to watch. So for during that first week, I'll be working out, trying to get back in shape, because I let my health, I let my fitness go by the wayside. Put all that aside to be doing all this, and it would have been worth it. Right now, I don't feel like I haven't produced, I haven't accomplished what I wanted. So I feel like I kind of let things slide with my health. I mean, right now, I have some daunting health issues that kind of have me scared. That's part of the reason why I'm going to do this fast, because fasting in the past has helped to restabilize my body. I mean, in the past I've been obese, I'm overweight now. In the past I've suffered from chronic pain and fatigue and COPD, all sorts of things, right? And so getting back into exercising and cleaning up my lifestyle and fasting intermittently has helped a lot. But at my age, you kind of have to stay on that, and you have to continue to work out. And I've been putting so much of my efforts to make this other push towards getting everybody to collaborate to change the world, and we need to make changes quickly. I mean, if you're going to listen to AOC, we got 12 years left on this planet. Well, I'm not going to say whether that's an exaggeration or not, but there are a lot of daunting environmental, there are barbarians at every gate imaginable. And I'm sorry, but you could have a population of highly intelligent, educated people who feel bad about where things are going, who are scared where things are going, and all the chit chat and hanging out and watching Netflix and just simply just complaining about things not only will not fix anything, it's the reason why we're where we're at in a bad place, going deeper into a bad place. And there are a lot of capitalists who believe that. There are a lot of, in fact, a lot of them are circling their wagons because they think a lot of them are scared. And don't think that a lot of them are saying, hey, we got to quit worrying about our wealth, and we got to quit this and that. We got to be one big kumbaya and start treating everybody different. In fact, I had a lot of capitalist friends, and I met some rich people, or at least prominent business owners, who said they were heartbroken by what I was going through. Why? Because they've had their heart broken. And some of the ones that I met that I think are a little bit sociopathic, all they said was like, that's how most people are. You can't, a lot of people won't allow you to be kind to them or to be forthright or this and that. They'll exploit you. And of course, many of them are real, nihilist or Machiavellian. They say, look, the world's an exploitive place. I exploit people to get wealth. I don't break laws, but I exploit people. My workers exploit me. The community everything's exploitive. That's what some people think. And so the thing is, some people exploit and create businesses and jobs while they're hurting people. But then people like that I used to work with, their exploitation comes from negligence. They exploit each other, themselves, by neglecting to do the things they need to do, by not collaborating. A very bad strategy. No gamer in a virtual world worth of salt would say, here's the strategy we have to follow. So again, I'm exhausted, and my final plan, and something I wanted to do, I was setting up to do even before I decided to go out and decide that maybe, besides my plan of having these 2 houses I have left, and which I owed very little, but they needed a lot of repairs, I figured, okay, I'll pay these, I'll find some way, because I'm unemployed. Getting employed is next to impossible, and I'll explain in another podcast. But, what can I do? What kind of cottage industry can I make? I mean, to feed myself and to take care of myself, if I was living in a Class C motorhome, I don't have any needs myself. But for my mission, that requires a lot of time, effort, dedication, and money. So, and I had 2 properties left, and I thought, and I went around the community, I could basically pay these off, and I could turn these houses over to organizations who are used to managing people, who will take people with low incomes, who are on the streets or almost on the streets, maybe they can't work, maybe they have some disabilities, and place them in houses. And that'd be great. Then I'd be able to leverage more effectively to continue doing that. And I showed my friends when I worked at the post office, I showed them amortization tables to where you could go 1 house per year. You have 1 house paid off. Let's say you have a house paid off now, any of you out there, and then you get another house. And then you can't just buy any house, but you have to have it within a certain cost and a certain amount of potential rents and everything else. And you take the money, you rent this house out, and you take the money from here and the lower rents, because you rent to people at an affordable level, not at the current level. You still, if this house is paid off, you can continue to build that up, and then by the time you pay, by the time a person is 18 to 90, they'd have 125, 127 houses paid off. Paid off. Because eventually it starts, all that money just circles into itself, And I actually, only one person, and I didn't make this up. This wasn't I had this concept came to me, and then I learned that this is how a lot of immigrants, this is how a lot of people who got wealthy in real estate, who started with nothing. So I actually had a friend that worked at the post office who made a lot of money. He made an invention, and it was like a low cost to make, and it was a good margin. And he started making so much money, him and his wife could retire from the post office. And eventually he invested in real estate in the manner that I suggested. And now he has all these rentals that he owns outright. He's doing quite well. And this is something that we all could be doing for each other. So if everybody would have jumped on board when I first started talking about this 20 years ago, all these things, and collaborating, we wouldn't have, the only people that would be homeless are those oddballs, and I can see myself doing this on occasion, who just want to live like David Thoreau, down by the river. Now there's some people like that who aren't mentally ill, but they're eccentric as hell, like me, right? Or they are mentally ill, and unfortunately they maybe have syringes and needles and defecate all over the place, and for the good of the public, those people have to be handled, hopefully in a compassionate way, and just kind of taken care of in a way, right? And so for all these people who are afraid or don't want to see their tax dollars being spent putting homeless people in Conestogas and two-man sheds and tiny houses and so forth, because I don't want my tax dollars, it's just not right, there's lazy this and this. Well, you know, the fact of the matter is, not all those people are lazy, even before the pandemic and the fires and the natural disasters. So, and here's another fact, cold hard fact. It's cheaper. Taxpayers, if you compare what we're paying in taxes for the problem, the problem that the homeless are causing now, and I gotta say, you could be a great person, but when you're homeless and you got to go to the emergency room and you got to, or the laws are such that you're a criminal because you don't have a house, and you're not allowed to park your car here. Here's a ticket. Here's a court date. Here's this and that, and it's hard. And it's tough to shower unless you have a key to the gym when you're living in a car, right? It's tough to keep hygienic. It's tough to cook. It makes things to, oh, hey, what's this? You got your car parked here and you're out here cooking a little grill. You're breaking another rule. Okay? Now there's a lot of people, it's not their fault where they're at. And even the people who are dysfunctional or lazy, right? Did they really have a choice? Well, that was their choice. Did they have the choice of being born? Did they have the choice of having dysfunctional parents? Did they have the choice of parents who had no skills or competency to instill the requisite skills and methods for people to best navigate through life with a good set of ethics and so forth? Because it wasn't like I got this manual, and here's the thing, I made a lot of mistakes, and I've done some shameful things, but just by the grace of God, if there is one, that I've decided to start making different choices. Now, some people argue that there's just a certain percentage of population that are just exploitive, sociopathic, unsuccessful sociopaths with or without substance abuse problems, who just don't give a shit about anybody, and they just have a sense of entitlement. People should be taking care of me. I don't know. I'm not a psychologist, but I would say it's possible there are people like that. It's still cheaper to put them in a Conestoga, give them basic staples, access to laundry and so forth. It's still a boatload cheaper, right? Boatload cheaper, right? No, my only fear is that, let's say my fear is the politicians. Politicians, are they going to say, hey, guess what? We were charging you, like each of you at the house, $5,000 a year of property taxes. Half that money was going to the homeless, but now we saved, the money we spend is so much lower by magnitudes of 100. So instead of paying $5,000 of taxes each year, you guys who are struggling too, we're going to lower your property taxes to $2,500. My fear is that the politicians are not going to do that. That's a shit move. That would be a shit move. So I'd say we really got to look at our politicians in a different way. They're servants. Yeah, they're leaders. I mean, you want the servants to have leadership qualities. If I was rich and I had a house, I would need law enforcement of sorts. I would need a security team taking care of me, keeping people at bay who are bad actors. I'd need an accounting team, financial analysts and so forth, okay? I would need that for my wealth. I would need PR people. I would need all these people, teams of people. And when you have good teams of people, if they're competent, they have strong leadership skills, and they should have strong interpersonal skills to work with each other, collaborate. Because if these different people we're working with, if there's infighting, just like there used to be at the post office, it's going to be bad. Now imagine if these people said, you know, if they started thinking instead of the servant, they start stealing from you, they start mismanaging your money, well, it's for his own good that we get paid more. And you know, Vince needs to put, we're going to take some of his money and we're going to put it in this piece of shitty art down by the town square, because, you know, it'll make him, it's for his own good. He doesn't have a say in this. You know, we voted on it in council. And so that's essentially what a lot of legislators are doing. They're public servants. Those people who are groundskeepers down there, all the people who work in a municipality from the foot soldier on up, would not have a job if we didn't pay taxes. So we have to look at them as servants, and we have to say, we elected you, and your department's hired people, and we elected you to make sure that you hired ethical people who aren't going to cause trouble, to do all the necessary things in the infrastructure that every municipality needs to have done. It's up to you. It's your house. None of this, I don't know what's going on. You're in charge. It's on your watch. It's your responsibility. We've employed you, which you begged for, worked vigorously to be elected. It's not like we, you know, my one union president used to be long-suffering. Oh, I just, you know, how much I sacrifice. I mean, the guy used to talk. I used to look around on the top of his head to see where the thorny crown was. I just do so much. You see him nailed to a cross. And it's like, you work aggressively to get elected, and you mudsling and went negative to the people who are competing against you. Obviously, there's something in you that's invested in getting this job. The same with the legislators. Now, the higher up the food chain legislators get, the bigger the city, then they get paid well. Okay, so we got to quit looking at them as the elite, and we have to basically understand that they do listen to pressures. Maybe not at city council meetings, but when things are collaborating enough, that's when things happen. Anyways, I've talked long, and like I said, it's unscripted. I'm speaking from the heart. I'll post a picture of the charities that I've always favored, and many of which I've raised money for. So when you see these charities, feel free to give money to them. I'm posting the only property I have left, that if I can't raise what little money I owe on it right now, in the next month or so, I owe very little. And I know a person who's raised twice that much because he fell into some more misfortune. Actually, he didn't even raise it. He just had a couple friends. Oh, his house burned down. $60,000 in 6 days. Well, that's twice as much as I need. And basically, once the house is taken care of, I'm going to turn it over to an organization. And I'm going to, when I say turn over, I'm going to lease it to them for half or a third of what they would have to lease for the same like property. So therefore, they would have more, by leasing it so cheaply, they would have more discretionary income to continue doing good. And that way, they have no excuse but to allow the people that they house to also pay a half to a third of what they would normally pay in a current market. If it doesn't happen, I'm going to be forced to sell it because I don't want to deal with roommates. I don't want to manage. I just want to be, my time free to pursue my passions. And obviously, because I'm reaching out, and I don't want to be approaching charities anymore and saying, how can I help you raise money? Don't want to do that. I'll only do a stunt. If I'm going to do a stunt, or people want me to help and collect people around me who will help, I'm going to have people who are, going to vet people now. I'm going to have to look them in the eye. I'm going to have to ask them questions about their nonprofit. I'm going to want to see how much money is going to administrative costs as opposed to actually helping people. I'm not going to be so indiscriminate. I want people with Navy SEAL mentalities to come to me, because that's the kind of mentality I have. If you don't have it, if it's just like, oh yeah, we just kind of do good things, want to see the community build. I'm not gonna, you know, nice people. I mean, I'm not putting them down, but I want to align myself with people who have the same fire in their belly and the willingness to go the distance that I am. That's not unfair. I think it's fair. So you'll see the picture of the house. You'll see a picture of a list of books that I wrote, because at one time when I didn't have a job and I couldn't get a job due to being blackballed, blacklisted, it's all I had. It's all I had. It's all I have to offer now, really, aside from me doing the stunts. So in a while, you'll see a free streaming video of me during my first 13 days of my fast, working out vigorously every day while not eating. And the last 8 days, I'll crawl into that sensory deprivation tank, and that has me a little scared, you know, because it might have some bad effects on the brain, hopefully not permanent effects. Anyways, follow me on Facebook, Walk for Insanity for Affordable Housing, Twitter, on Instagram, on YouTube at Insanity Unplugged or Vulcan Vinny. And feel free to purchase my books. Feel free to purchase t-shirts. And not only am I selling my stuff, I got other people who are coming on board who'll be selling their stuff, because I said I will help to promote your stuff if proceeds will go to certain charity, or not certain charities, so even because the people who will buy these articles can even choose. Like, I don't like that charity, will you send the proceeds to this charity? So, at any rate, good night, and I hope this explains a lot, because like I said, I'm just exhausted to do it the way I've been doing it. And again, I mean, I'm accountable for this. It's not like I've been targeted unfairly. Things didn't go, life's not fair, but I just have to accept that. It is what it is, and I'm going to move forward. And here's the great thing. Here's what's awesome. If I sell my house and I get my Class 3 motorhome, and I can utilize my money, because right now I got one friend who's paying for half of a gym that I was setting up before the pandemic. I had a personal training business, and suddenly the pandemic, nobody's training. I saw all of a sudden I didn't have that money coming in, but I had a lease to pay every month. And it's not like, you know, it's not like when you lease a place, you can't live in a place you lease. If it's commercial property, you can't. It's just, it's not appropriate because it's not set up to live in. But I had a friend, because I had shelling out so much money to these projects to make my mission work, that he had to come in and say, look, I want to be a personal training instructor too, because he has that certification. And so he's been paying for half of the lease every month for quite a few months, because he's passionate about what I'm doing. He's inspired by what I'm doing. He sees that this is not like I got a wild thought and gave it a pretty good go for 1 month. This has been years of talking about this, trying to get people to get involved or to do this plan within their own families. So, shoot, I talk longer than I wanted. You know, Joe Rogan has 3-hour podcasts, but I ain't no Joe Rogan. Some people might listen to the whole thing. I don't know. But when I get my motorhome, if I don't sell my house, even though I didn't accomplish my mission, my life, in every other respect, is going to be better. But it's only going to be my life that'll be better. So, chew on that. Can't wait to talk to you all in my next podcast to hear about the horrors of government agencies and bureaucracies that will, that willy-nilly, on a whim, make laws, and they're not held accountable. Love you all. Love most of you. Want the best for all of you, but I love most of you. So, good night.